My son's teacher laid hands on him and told him to stop acting like a victim, so I had her teaching license suspended and made her lose her job. My son came home crying from school on his birthday and told me he didn't want to go to his party anymore. When I asked why, he said it's because his teacher twisted his ear after he complained to her about getting bullied, and it was still hurting. I hugged him and he just broke down completely. Jimmy tore my math notebook again, but when I told Mrs. Brown about it, she told me it was probably my fault for making him angry and then started pulling on my ear. Mommy, I promise I never did anything to him. Why are they so mean to me? I remembered that Jimmy was Mrs. Brown's son and understood everything. You see, this wasn't the first time this had happened. Mrs. Brown had practically targeted my son ever since she became his teacher. The next morning, I accompanied him to the school and packed my trusty pocket knife just in case I needed it. I work as a lawyer, so I had been very patient with Mrs. Brown, but she needed to be taught a lesson. I sent her an email asking if I could do a quick 15-minute presentation in class about how her teaching methods were helping students, and she loved the idea. When I arrived, Mrs. Brown introduced me as Matt's mother, and I saw the bully, Jimmy, light up from the corner of the room thinking he was going to get recognition. Good morning, everyone. I'm Matt's mom, and as Mrs. Brown mentioned, I'm here to talk about teaching methods and how they shape us. Let's start with a quick scenario. Imagine you're sitting at your desk quietly finishing your math assignment. Suddenly, another student rips your notebook. Naturally, you report this to your teacher, hoping they'll help. But imagine your teacher's response is, well, it's probably your fault for making them want to pick on you. I paused, seeing Jimmy smirking confidently. Now, class, does this sound fair to you? Every kid instantly went, no, it doesn't. Mrs. Brown looked like she had made a big mistake in agreeing to my request. Great, let's explore this. Who here knows what the school's anti-bullying policy says? I pulled up a digital copy of the policy on my tablet. It clearly states that students who report bullying are the good guys, and the teacher who doesn't help them is the bad guy. Especially if the teacher starts twisting their ears or blaming them for speaking out. Everyone looked at me in shock, because they had all seen how Jimmy wasn't punished at all even though he was the bully. I walked slowly through the desks, addressing each child directly. Every one of you deserves to feel safe at school. If someone hurts you or your belongings, you're not at fault, ever. And if an adult tells you otherwise, they're breaking the rules and could even end up in jail. Mrs. Brown cleared her throat nervously, interrupting. Perhaps we should wrap up. Just one moment, please. I smiled calmly. Students, if you ever feel like you should say something, say something. And if you get punished for simply saying something, then that means you were in the right, but your teacher's ego got hurt. Turning to Mrs. Brown, I said pointedly, right, Mrs. Brown? She was forced to nod weakly, clearly humiliated. As I packed my things, I whispered to Matt loud enough for others to hear. Never stop speaking the truth, sweetheart. You're brave for standing up. Matt smiled softly, and Jimmy shrank in his seat. His previous confidence vanished. Mrs. Brown looked anywhere but at me while trying to hide how red her face was. Outside the classroom, Mrs. Brown quickly approached me, clearly flustered. I think you owe me an apology. You embarrassed me in front of my students. I think she had mistaken me for one of those mothers who would stay down and accept her words just because she was my son's teacher. I calmly looked her in the eye. Let's discuss this with Principal Andrews. I'm sure he'd love to hear about your teaching methods firsthand. Within minutes, we stood in Principal Andrews' office. I maintained my calm as I spoke clearly. Mrs. Brown has physically harmed my child and repeatedly failed to protect him from bullying. I interrupted her interruption with a stern look on my face and kept looking her in the eyes as I continued. If I hear her violating the school policy and state laws again, I will launch a lawsuit against the school with a number so big that you'll see it in your dreams. Principal Andrews woke up when I said that word and rushed me out the room with guarantees that this won't happen again. When the door closed, I heard him screaming at Mrs. Brown like she was an immature idiot who couldn't handle her emotions. 3 days later, I heard from my son that Mrs. Brown never returned to teach their class, so I thought she might have been reassigned. But then Principal Andrews called me and informed me with glee that her teaching license was suspended pending an investigation. We take bullying very seriously here, that's what he said, and I could tell he was still scared of the word lawsuit. He told me that regardless of what happens to her license, she will never teach at their school again because she raised her hand against a student. I thanked him for his sincerity and hoped that next time he'd take action before a parent has to get involved. As for my son, we celebrated his birthday at laser tag a week later.